So I'm going to formally kick off my project today with this blog for my final project. Its working name is called Oecist, that's Oecist, which means founder of a colony. It's a stereo system, as most of you will know. It's a very, very complicated project, and so in order to finish it, my timetable is to have all the technical, or 95% of the technical issues sorted prior to the formal beginning of the project, which is, I think, late June. What I'm trying to do is a full stereo system minus the source, so you would add your own CD player or a turntable or most likely computer server. It's primarily designed to run using a small Apple Mac and running controlling the entire system using either an iPod Touch or an iPhone. So it's Bluetooth enabled. You'd use Bluetooth, so you'd use the iPhone remote to control volume and all those kind of housekeeping functions. So part of the project is going to be have an iPhone app, which I have a developer to work for, which is great, who's already done several projects successfully, and I'm hoping to kind of do the graphics, but essentially leave the ball in his park. Then the system itself is a one-box electronic system which holds the all the controls, the volume control, etc. Also all the amplifiers. Now it's an active system, which means that there is one amplifier for each driver. So there's a tweeter amplifier for the left, one for the right. There's two mid-range amplifiers and there's two bass amplifiers. It's a three-way system. It uses normal drivers, but they're mainly from a very kind of exclusive French company called Supravox. These are incredibly rare drivers, but they do what I want them to do, so that's the most important thing. The system itself is also fully active in terms of it has a digital signal processing which controls, so everything is controlled in the digital realm. So from your media server it comes into the amplifier digitally. It's then put through EQs. It is then divided into all the different frequency ranges, and then there's one digital to analog converter per amplifier. So I'm going to mainly use for the amplifiers, I'm using a company called Hypix, which is a company from the Netherlands, and they're Class D. Some people call them digital amplifiers. That's not correct, but they are incredibly efficient and they will pass all the emissions regulations in terms of radio frequency and electromagnetic, as well as very, very low power consumption despite having incredibly large power. At the moment I'm going to be using 100 watt amplifiers for the tweeters, 180 watt amplifiers for the mid-range. I'm currently using a 700 watt amplifier for the bass drivers, but I'm thinking about really gunning it and moving up to 2000 watt amplifiers for the bass drivers, because you really, there's just no replacement for displacement and power in that kind of area. The other tricky thing is that it's got full room correction, which means when you set up the system you'll put a microphone where the listener sits, and the system will self-calibrate when you're setting it up, will self-calibrate itself and essentially wipe out the room. So this means that all the speakers, all the stereos will always sound, or should sound, very, very close to each other despite which room you put it in. It's not a total panacea. It can't do very, very high frequency EQ because you're talking about very small distances, but it does manage to waste almost every other in the low range and bass, mid-range. It really cleans up the system and makes them sound a lot better. In which case I'm working in conjunction with a company called Dex out of Australia. They're the acknowledged leaders in the field. They've got over 3 decades of experience in this, and they were doing it well before anyone was doing it before. We'll be working in conjunction with them, and they'll be building me a custom OEM version of what I want. This includes the special software setup, because they normally work with professional companies with a very complicated setup, whereas we're trying to work together and make a very simple setup that anyone can do. Now in reality we would do it for the person when we walked in there, but we do want that kind of ease of use. So the whole idea is the stereo looks very simple, always works, is always reliable, sounds fantastic, looks great, and is incredible, kind of based on that iPod ethos. You know, it should be just really user friendly. In order to do that though, of course it's going to have to be fairly complicated under the body. Currently I have built most of the amplifiers in working prototypes. I have tested my theories in terms of the bass. The current bass I'm getting, I believe, is some of the best in the world. It's certainly the best that I've ever heard, bar huge bass horns. And I've listened to most of the world's best loudspeaker systems when I was living in Tokyo, so I don't say that lightly, and I'm not saying it to kind of toot my own horn, but the bass is fantastic. Currently the mid-range is not good enough. I'm using a carbon fibre, glass reinforced fibre thin-walled cabinet, and it just doesn't do what I want. So I'm going to be looking at using a ceramic cabinet. So during late January and all of February, my aim is to test and get that mid-range cabinet right. The tweeter itself, that's easy. You just buy a tweeter. The tweeter's not the tweeter has no loading within the cabinet, and the bass cabinet I'm satisfied with. So my major concerns are to get the technical issues over and out the way. I'm going to be using an electrical engineer. There is quite a lot of interface design and a lot of ground plane design, but I'm not going to be doing that. I understand how it works. I've got to the point where I understand why I want things to happen the way they do, but it's time for me to give that up. So I need some funding input. I need a very good electrical engineer. I have someone who I'm chasing, who I think is probably the best in New Zealand. He's certainly he's built his own commercial high-end amplifiers before, and he's an acknowledged guru in the field. His name's the Professor, and I'm hoping to bring him on board. And I'm probably going to need a digital to analog designer as well. I'm not sure. I don't think that the Professor's, that's his field. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to point me to work with someone. So it's a massive project, but I've been working towards this one for a long time. I believe the teachers don't want me to do this, but this is why I came here, and this is why I've spent this time doing my degree. So I'm really going to go for it. This is it. Alright, ciao.